It was those people who have access to all the same information I got access to, that we who saw this coming have access to. It was those people that voted for what essentially is America's introduction to. I've been trying very hard to reconcile my frustration with the people who voted for Trump and the reality of the fact that some people just did not know what they were getting themselves into. I really wanted to make room for that being a possibility because I understand that everybody don't have access to the same information all the time. You know what I mean? So, I have internet, I have, access to social media, I have access to a lot of these things. So maybe I'm at a bit of an advantage when it comes to information and being able to make sound decisions. But then I remember how blatant some of the chaotic and racist and phobic things were. Like, there was literally a rally at Madison Square Garden where Puerto Ricans were called a pile of trash.
Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Where are my proud Latinos at tonight? You guys see what I mean? It's wide open. There's so many of them. It's absolutely incredible. Believe it or not, people, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this.
Signs with for supporting mass deportation, and what I could see it if it was people in the mountains, like West Virginia, the Alps, stuff like that. The people that even white people don't want to be fucking around with, who exist across this country. Those white folk exist in real life all across this country. But those are the same white folks that benefit from all the social safety nets that this administration promised to take away. So I could see it if it was just them that voted, because resource-wise and demographically, culturally, they probably don't have access to the same information. But that wasn't the case. It was sophisticated folk, soccer moms. It was politicians' wives, politicians themselves, governors, mayors, city council people, secretaries of states in local government, local state houses. It was those people who have access to all the same information I got access to, that we who saw this coming have access to. It was those people that voted for what essentially is America's introduction to authoritarianism. And then that's when I lose the sympathy, because if you work a corporate job and you're making a decent income, yes, you knew why inflation happened. You knew that we went through an entire pandemic. And a reasonable person would know that you got to take extreme measures to keep 2008 from happening again.
from 2019 before COVID. And in some places, especially at the grocery store, prices are so much higher than where they were then. When you look back on it, do you have any regrets about all the fiscal stimulus and extra spending put in place, adding fuel to the fire when it comes to sparking that kind of high inflation?
So I think it's important to remember what the world looked like when we entered the beginning of the Biden administration. We had a pandemic that was raging out of control, and thousands of people were dying on a monthly basis. And the unemployment rate remained extremely high. And many people who had lost their jobs, although they were being supported by unemployment insurance, were in a position where they could lose the roof over their heads. And we saw people in cars lining up at food banks to make sure that they could feed their families. And it was really important to spend the money to alleviate that suffering, to make sure that small businesses didn't go out of business because of the pandemic. People would have lost their livelihoods, their businesses that they had invested in. And we wanted to alleviate all of that suffering. We'd seen in past downturns like during the Great Recession, that people who are unemployed for a very long time become scarred. They become alienated from the workforce, and they can never get their lives, many of them, back on track. So I call that scarring. And we really wanted to avoid that. And I think the spending was necessary.
So why, pray tell, would you be, on the one hand, supportive of stimulus checks and money, PPP loans, things like that? All of y'all were supportive of those things. To then punish, by virtue of your vote, the administration that gave that to you and kept your ass from going into an actual depression. What it ultimately boils down to is it had nothing to do with common sense, because the things that the man was saying were so obvious and so blatant. Y'all knew he was a 34-time convicted felon. Y'all knew that he was grabbing people by the hoo-ha. You knew that he was accused of sexual assault and convicted with E. Jean Carroll. You knew that he was cozy with Putin, who is a dictator. You knew, and yet you still voted that way. And now you're shocked that everything that you were warned about is manifesting. Terrors that you couldn't be bothered to research are not going to be good for you. They're going to make things worse. Mass deportation, though, who's going to fill those jobs? Americans don't want them. So who's going to fill those jobs? We don't want them. To the Democrats, even with how we push things in our market, in the marketing, and trying to connect to people, like, sometimes things can be too PC. It's okay to say that a lot of those, what we call illegal immigrants, who are important to the economy in the workforce, do the manual labor jobs. They do work in the fields. They do a lot of the agricultural work. that Americans don't want to do. They do a lot of the domestic work. It's not racist to say that. It's true. They do a lot of the housekeeping jobs, the nannies, the babysitters. They do the lawn care. They do all those things that Americans don't want to do. It doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them less than. It doesn't mean that somehow, it's not a racist thing to say that these are the facts. But because we're so concerned about making sure we don't connect immigrants to lower wage jobs that Americans don't deign themselves to doing, we allowed this man to get away with convincing these people that they're taking your jobs. They're taking the black jobs. No, they're doing the job that y'all don't want no way. How many people in this country are on unemployment or don't work at all, but you've never seen them go apply for a job at the chicken house to catch chickens that y'all, so Purdue can cut them up so y'all can eat them? You don't ever see them breaking their neck to apply for jobs doing waste management. You don't see these Americans out here trying to do those back-breaking, sweat of the brow jobs to even put food on their own table. How many homeless people have come to your house and asked you, could they clean your house for money? Yes, I understand there are homeless people on drugs and stuff like that, and they're mentally ill. I get all that. But every homeless person ain't mentally ill. CNN just did a segment that showed that GDP would drop by more than 8%. During the Great Recession in 2008, GDP dropped half that amount. So if Trump does the mass deportations, GDP will drop double what it dropped during the Great Recession. But you know what it is? It's not that you didn't know. It's not that you didn't care. It all goes back to racism. Racism. Pure, unadulterated racism, whether conscious or subconscious. When them people told y'all that brown people were going to be the majority, eventually, a lot sooner than we thought, birth rates were declining amongst white Americans, and that majority was fast approaching becoming at par with the rest, with the minorities or a minority themselves, that freaked y'all out. It did. I get it. Who wants their race to be diminished or what have you, whatever your reasoning is? Hey, of course, if there was something that was going to impact black people, I'm proud to be black, and I would want to protect my race. But to what end? To what end? You would rather it be so selfish to protect something that you will never attain. Because you know what they've shown y'all? They are showing you that they don't give a fuck about you. Soccer mom, they don't. They care about billionaires, period. Oligarchy, period. That's what this administration, they care about the people at the top being able to get away with murder. That's why you had Matt Gaetz as a freaking nominee to run the goddamn Justice Department. How the hell does a sexual predator get nominated to run the thing that's supposed to convict and prosecute sexual predators? You understand? This isn't rocket science at all. This has all been abundantly, absolutely clear and available to you. So the only thing I can consider at this point is racism. Because God forbid minority is on par with whiteness. God forbid. Y'all thought that they were going to fix your problems, all for whiteness' sake. They're going to fix my problem because we got to protect ourselves. And fuck it, he might be an authoritarian, but hey, at the end of the day, we're winning. My race, my whiteness, my original Americanness is winning at the end of the day. And if I'm a Christian, then my Lord and Savior is white like me. And he will want me to yield to an authoritarian, all for the betterment of his church, and all for the preservation of my race. So you voted for a sex offender, a sexual predator, a felon, a liar, a cheater, a person who's bankrupted an entire city, damn near, in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Those Trump casinos devastated that city. They still have not recovered as a city. When you go to Atlantic City is beautiful location. Beautiful. That city should be a destination for the entire country with the plans that were set out for that city. Casinos, as far as the eye could see, them casinos, especially the Trump ones primarily, that went bankrupt, are frozen in time from the damn 60s, 70s. Like, frozen in time. No development. And they're a beach city. One of America's most popular beach cities at one point. Trump got his hands in the pot, lied about casino development. He literally told us how he did it. He hired bulldozers to push dirt around on the beach so these foreign investors would give him the money to build his first casino there. Because in his mind, he just wanted to put his name on some shit that was already up and coming and that was already making a name for itself. He wanted his name to be bigger and better, and destroyed that city. So he only cares about himself. It's very clear. And with that, it's hard to have any amount of sympathy because you literally said F you. And I'm talking about the black ones too, especially the black ones. You thought the Indian one, the Ramaswamis of the bunch, y'all thought that he actually was going to do something special for you? Where's Senator Tim Scott now? Byron Donalds. All of that cooning. For what? For what? So we have an oligarchy forming in the United States. We have imperialism coming back in the United States. Trump wants to take over Greenland. He wants to annex Canada and invade Panama. Whether they're good reasons or not, I'm not arguing whether or not there is something good about Panama, or something good about the resources in Greenland or whatever you can come up with. We don't take over countries. That's not what we do as Americans. That's what Russia did to Crimea. We decried it. And that's what Russia is trying to do to Ukraine. Most Americans support Ukraine. Like, what are we talking about right now? Voted for whiteness. And if you weren't white, you thought that you could be added or that you were invited to the party of us versus them. You were a means to an end. And now that end has arrived, and he's made it very clear. California is burning down because of climate change, global warming, drought. They went from, let's think. A couple of years ago, they had a hurricane. Unprecedented amounts of rain poured on California. Okay? Extreme rain events happened in California. Oversaturated the earth, produced an abundance of vegetation, right? Right after, and you know what they said the hurricanes were? Somehow being controlled by the government. They made y'all believe that the government had a button that made hurricanes happen. You know that's not true. You know that's not true. So you got so caught up in that bullshit that you, I guess, forgot that they had all that rain and grew all this vegetation. And then what happened? That all that vegetation dried out. Extreme drought happened this past year. Extreme drought. Droughts, more days without rain than they've seen in hundreds of years. Unprecedented drought. And then what else happened? The Santa Ana winds were winding harder than they ever winded before. 100-mile-an-hour winds. We literally saw fire tornadoes
all over social media. Unbelievable. Yeah, you get big pressure changes, big temperature changes, and you can see those. It's a real thing. There's actually been an EF3 fire tornado that happened in the past. I'm trying to remember which fire.
Tornadoes that spun up flames, ransacking properties. Like Armageddon style stuff. And you know what Trump did? Trump is blaming Gavin Newsom and the mayor for a liberal water policy, talking about some damn fish. It didn't have nothing to do with that. It's global warming. These things are going to continue to happen. Look what happened in Hawaii. You forget, it's not unique to California. This happened in Hawaii. An entire city burned to the ground. Like, wait, what? Like, we are all finding out. And the fact that y'all are just now finding out says everything that everyone needs to know about where your priorities and your motivations truly were. Because if you were truly concerned about your fellow brother and sister, your fellow citizen, your fellow man, period, you would have never, ever cast a vote for Donald Trump. They had y'all so hooked on the blackness of Obamacare that you believed the Affordable Care Act. Is this mic on? Because I gotta make sure y'all hear me. Y'all were so obsessed with the blackness of Obamacare that they convinced you that it was different from the Affordable Care Act. Meanwhile, it's the same damn program. They named it Obamacare to freak y'all out to help it get repealed. They are laughing in your face. Luigi Mangione, this United Healthcare situation. They are pushing the narrative that this is about vigilantism, which no one supports anyone getting murdered in the street. But they're doing that to distract you from the fact that the healthcare system in this country is indeed a problematic industry, an abusive industry, an industry that has for far too long taken advantage of the American people. They can't have us overturn the healthcare system the way it is because too many people make money off of it. Too many people make money off of big pharma. The one thing I will say about RFK, the reason I was interested in that man before he went loopy with Trump is because he was right. Big pharma is a problem. But now he done got in bed with the enemy. Will he do the right thing and do what's right about healthcare in this country? Untether big pharma from healthcare, so it's not a for-profit industry. They can give us cheap chemicals in our food. The FDA just now banning red number 3. Just now, when Europe banned it 50 years ago, because they're saying it's linked to causing cancer and other conditions like ADHD, which I have in children. I love my Fruit Loops. Who didn't? I love Fruit Loops. As a kid, Fruit Loops and Fruity Pebbles was my jam. Didn't know it was causing cancer or contributing to the fact that now I have ADHD and many other men do too. Like, they know that children are stimulated by color, bright colors, for all sorts of reasons. That's true. And they sucked us in, gave us food, cheaply made, poisoning us for real. And Europe was like, nah, y'all can't do it over here. And because they still want to make money, because they're barons and oligarchs, they were like, okay, well, we'll do it the right way in Europe and sell it at we're going to sell it at a lower profit margin, but we're going to still sell it. But we're going to keep on making Americans sick. So why would they want it to look like a CEO can be assassinated and that be not about what's wrong with the system, but rather vigilantism? When the people are realizing what's wrong with the system, they want to do something about it to change it. California wildfires. Why is it that insurance companies canceled policies? You don't think that their data showed them that the chances of a wildfire happening with the extreme drought and those extreme weather changes due to climate change were going to put them at a greater risk of having to pay out claims, which is why they canceled all those policies just in time. They canceled them a couple of years, in some cases, before what we're seeing happen right now. You think that was just a coincidence? It will always be the ultra wealthy versus everybody else. They will continue to try to make us believe that we'll eventually join their ranks. But the system is only designed for a few to join those ranks. And the majority of us are not in that few. We're not. So I hope that this is less of an opportunity for us to say, I told you so, because we did tell you so, but more of an opportunity for us to figure out and realize that we got to get on the same page and stop letting petty shit divide us. The trans people ain't bothering you. The blacks are not coming to take away your whiteness. You can still go to your white church, live in your white neighborhood, and do all the things you folks like to do. And black people are going to continue to do what black people like to do. We don't have to agree on every damn thing, but we can coexist. And they have convinced you that we can't in order to usher in full authoritarianism, where all of us are losers and all of them are winners. So we're not blinded by race. We're not afraid of the other. We're not obsessed with trying to otherize ourselves from other people. So what if you want to cut your penis off and take hormones? I don't let them people do what they want to do. So what? Who cares? Y'all freaking out about trans people in sports. Out of 500,000 athletes, 10, 10, 10, 10 were trans. Really? Is that serious? It's not that big of a deal. Who cares? How many trans people do you know in your neighborhood at all? How many have you seen in your local grocery store for real that you so freaked out? Stop. DEI. It means diversity, equity, and inclusion. So everyone should be represented in the workplace. If you have, especially in workplaces that have majority black staff, like your call centers. Well, how is it that majority of the people answering the telephone is black, but everybody in leadership is white? That shouldn't be. There's nothing wrong with that. There should be other perspectives. I should be culturally aware. I should know what would be offensive to an Indian person and what would be inappropriate to say to a black person. Yes, it's inappropriate to touch their hair. That's not good. Don't do that. Yes, it is inappropriate to start every conversation with a black person. As soon as a black person comes into the space, saying something about what you know about black. You listen to Kendrick Lamar? I love Kendrick Lamar. Who the fuck? Where did that come from, Becky? Why are you asking about Kendrick Lamar? Like, can we talk about Joe and Joanne who just got married? Like, we're celebrating them right now, right? Why are you inserting random Kendrick Lamar? What? No, you need someone who looks like me and maybe looks like you, who's aware of me, to tell you that you don't do that. Just be regular. Diversity matters. You're insulting people by telling them, oh, you're so articulate. As opposed to what? You're surprised that I can use big words because I'm black? That impresses you? Oh, you're what? Like, diversity is important. It's a good thing. It's what makes America America. But they convinced you that it was somehow causing some type of irreparable harm to your whiteness. And the sad thing is, some of y'all think that the likes of a Steve Bannon, that little feud that him and Elon Musk got going on because of the H-1B visa stuff, y'all think that Steve Bannon is in any position to save you. He's not. He's not. Steve Bannon is the white trash. Steve Bannon is not viewed as anybody that Trump wants surrounding him at all. Steve Bannon was used to get some of y'all on board with the agenda, with the foolishness. Steve Bannon himself was a pawn in Trump's maniacal plan. Period. His purpose, Steve Bannon's purpose has been served. He don't need Steve Bannon no more. So he can feud with Musk all he wants. White trash is not allowed to be at the party. I hope this is an opportunity for us to work together. Maybe we can let bygones be bygones.